when the email discussions were floating around, what was the thing that really popped up for you? If they would crystallize one issue that you'd like to raise for the group, and then share that with us one by one, and then we'll start to build on that. We have a couple of voting questions which we can vote on, and then hopefully we can start pulling in the audience as quickly as possible. Okay? Please.
Well, many thoughts have come to mind during the last 24 hours or so, which very much familiar to most of us in this room. And I think in the last 10, 15 years or 20 years, being involved in the region, in the telco and telecommunication and technology in general, what I keep witnessing is that we keep talking about the same subjects over and over again, the same issues that are evolving either around our societies or around our businesses that we manage. The unfortunate thing that I keep witnessing is that we have not been able to evolve as a society, especially in this region. We continue to import whatever is being produced, whatever is being created out in the West and marketed on a local level or a regional level. The creativity in this region has been lagging for a century, and it continues to lag for one reason or another. And I think we are to blame. Our parents, they are the one to blame. And unless we do something differently, we're going to continue living in this uncertainty that we're living in today. It is unfortunate that in most of these conferences that we all attend, we haven't been able to come together as a society, as human beings, to really advance our knowledge base and be able to make effective contribution toward R&D, toward innovations, toward intellectual properties, toward enhancing future educations. We still revolve around the same subjects over and over again. And I mentioned this to Jawad earlier. What I'd like to see, at least in future conferences, us as business leaders to come together and set a strategy for the next 10 years. Where do we want to be as a society?
So creativity and leveraging the benefits from our region is kind of the things that I picked up from your comment. And it's a good time to bring Joe Khalil in, because a term which he brought up in our email discussions was something called creative labor. And this is stimulating our labor force to be very creative, like creating media, creating Arabic content and so on. So without presupposing what you might comment on, what's important for you, Joe?
All right. What I'm going to do is try to save you a jet-lagged academic rambling. And I'll try to address the theme of the panel. I jotted down some notes on the plane, and I think it's very interesting how the panelists sort of address the issue of convergence from the business perspective, not the user context. Let me clarify what I'm trying to do here, what I'm trying to say here. Since 2006, I've been researching how young people in this region sort of produce media. And I give a sort of a broad definition of media, which includes social media, but also rap songs and graffiti and other forms. And I think what we've seen with the uprisings is how young people's videos got picked up by mainstream media and shared on mobile and on the internet. And which means, in other words, while corporations are still trying, and as we've just noticed, are still trying to figure out how they divide the commercial benefit out of a possible convergence. Young people sort of force them to actually do this through the kind of media that they were doing. And what we've seen as in the aftermath is news directors at the major television channels sort of rushing to have an online presence and increasing their web divisions, and at the same time we've seen advertising agencies sort of rushing in to say, okay, how can we capitalize on this?
I mean, there are so many different areas. Tim, if you would choose one area that popped into your mind, you know, in the discussions that we've had, in the email discussions, and also what you've heard over the last day and a half, what really picked up for you in terms of this area?
So resources for convergence, people, funding, startups. I came to the region as a foreign consulting resource some 7 years ago, funded by Qatar Telecom and Denmark at the time to help build a startup in Oman that was the second mobile operator called Nationalisation. I think I would actually give this whole evolution a bit more of an optimistic and positive spin as opposed to Mr. Michael Dagher, maybe from my perspective as a foreigner from a different market. So 7 years ago, this second operator in Oman was launched as a mix of foreign resources and local resources. Very early on in the process of the seeding, Nauras went out to the local market and tendered for ambitious, young, willing to learn and hungry resources. And the response at that time was tremendous. There were queues of thousands of young Omanis handing in their CVs, going through interviews. There had to be a crowd control to hold back the interest of these young individuals that had the ambition to be part of something new, something technology, something that was actually a fairly boring, proven business model in the rest of the world called GSM. But they wanted to be part of it. And the very leadership of Nauras enabled and pushed this from the very start, made the locals a part of the team, helped them learn in a kind of knowledge spillover from foreign resources and also from more experienced people from Denmark as well as QTEL to be part of this, let's say, half-year, super full-speed launch experience.
You know, Philippe Voglia, you inherited the legacy of Tim and his team's work, obviously. Maybe there's some things that you'd like to point out that, you know, have been long-lasting success factors or anything else?
Yeah, sure. I've been traveling to this region since about 2003, came to establish myself here in 2005. I've been living in 3 different countries, tend to totally agree on the power of what has been done. So I would really be positive on what the region is trying to do and these achievements. That being considered, you know, we still have that phenomenon today. I mean, I was with Orange before, I moved to Nauras now. We still have 400 people applying for a job every week. We just recruited 150 new staff members, and funnily enough, I mean, I relate to what Majd was saying early on. We did create this assessment center to basically be able to absorb many of the young graduates of the country as fast as possible. And well, out of the 30 best people who had scored in the practical and the interviews, basically in the tests, 29 were women. Out of the 150 that we recruited, 78% were women, based basically on the scoring that they had in these rounds of interviews and rounds of meetings with us, basically. So all this to say, you know, the human capital factor is something we should really not overlook. We are all discussing here since 2 days about applications, about platforms, about whatever. But then at the end of the day, you need to have clients who can basically afford to pay services. Those clients, in order to be able to afford services, need to have jobs. In order for those clients to basically have jobs, they need to be properly trained, etc., etc., etc.
Tom, when we were discussing our emails, you were kind of gravitating towards another kind of capital, in fact, realizing some of the value investment in networks and these kind of things. I mean, give us a little bit about what popped up in this discussion that was really kind of important to you that you'd like to share with the group.
Well, there's some very interesting topics here, which I wasn't totally prepared, but let's put it this way. SAMENA itself as an organization is definitely looking in this direction. It is an issue, as Phil said. My friend from Kearney also put it very well, spoke about it, the limitations of the market today. We're in a situation where many of the operators are trying to find ways to nationalize their talent. And also, this goes along with the regulators and the ministerial bodies. I just had some discussions in a couple of countries recently where this is a topic of discussion even with our group. One of the things that SAMENA has decided to do, and it's been a long time running, it's in process, is it's created a SAMENA's Careers Portal, which is going to be making an attempt, if you will, to assist in educational development and nationalization efforts. We are in the process right now of developing some key relationships with professionals who will be doing a country-by-country assessment. We call it a health check, and this will be based on human resources, capabilities, skill sets. It's highly important that the region does find jobs for its young college grads. I have a college grad. My son is 23. I know how the feeling goes. And he is one of those wandering souls, if you will. I need to express that it's very important to, like in countries like Oman, in Naras and Omantel, they've done very, very well. And everyone has been reading the papers, and they understand what's going on in the region. Oman, I think the number is 95 or 96% local content with regard to nationalization and their employment. Now you go into other areas like where we are at in Dubai, the story is completely different.